Like and subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon to get new video updates.
Analysis: Ukraine's wave of transplant scandals is a healthy sign. Last weekend, well-known investigative journalist Yury Nikolov published a Defense Ministry procurement contract to purchase food for the military at prices 50% and more above retail. The Defense Ministry denied wrongdoing, but did not actually deny the specifics of Nikolov's reporting. Since Russia invaded last February, the ministry's procurement has been classified and therefore not visible in Ukraine's state-of-the-art ProZorro public tendering system, and ministry officials have declined to answer lawmakers' questions about contracts until the war is over. Nikolov's call for a return to pre-war transparency is likely to fall on deaf ears, given the difficulty of keeping civil society informed and giving too much information to the enemy. But President Volodymyr Zelensky, who won the election on anti-corruption promises, cannot be accused of ignoring corruption and profiteering during the war. He was one of the key officials responsible for rebuilding Ukraine after the Russian attacks, and was reportedly driving around in October in a Chevrolet truck donated to Ukraine for emergency evacuations. After the story broke, Tymoshenko turned the truck over to the emergency services. In a recent interview, Yaroslav Zhelezniak, a senior member of the Ukrainian parliament's Finance, Taxation and Customs Committees, estimated that Ukraine loses 10 billion hryvnia a month from customs corruption alone. Peacetime figures were often comparable. As a Russian, however, I see a striking contrast between the freely spreading Ukrainian reports of corrupt deals and the total lack of similar news from my native country. Corruption in the Russian military undeniably contributed to the failure of its blitzkrieg plan for Ukraine last year. And yet, after a year of fratricide campaigns, not even the many investigative channels that have burst into the public eye over the past 5 years have brought to light major procurement scandals, and of course, not because there's nothing to see there. Vladimir Putin has pushed the journalists writing for these publications out of the country. No matter how good your sources are in Russia, it is hard to uncover transplants there from Georgia or Lithuania, and the patriotic press that supported or accepted the invasion and continues to operate in Moscow and other Russian cities just don't have it necessary change motivation to dig up this kind of story. Despite the harrowing circumstances Ukraine is facing, its independent-minded press is still doing its best to keep officials under a magnifying glass. I have my problems with the Ukrainian media. They pretty much follow the government line on military action. But that is probably inevitable in a country struggling to survive, a priority for journalists as well as for all other Ukrainians. It is important, however, that awareness of the shared predicament does not deter reporters from seeking and examining procurement contrasts or ferreting out informal links between politicians and the business community. Former Ukraine Economy Minister Timothy Milovanov recently commented on Twitter that the scandals prove one thing about his country. Corruption is episodic, but the culture shift to fight it is systemic. That optimism may not be entirely warranted. My experience in both Russia and Ukraine tells me that a year ago one tremendously corrupt country invaded another, and that in both countries, patriotism often serves as a cover for the most cynical theft. When the fighting is over and the fog of war lifts, successful profiteers in both countries will show their money. However, there is one big difference. In Russia, if their regime survives, these profiteers will be able to enjoy life without shame when the Kremlin sees them as allies.